Deciding to be in a relationship with a man. A relationship is availability and openness. Very much the foundation. So I see a lot of women in relationships with men who are unavailable, who are unopen. What does it mean to be available? To be available, especially as a man, is that he has to feel secure in who he is. Men who are not secure in who they are, they're unavailable in the way that they have no space to receive a relationship. That space is filled up with their needing to gain an ego. So a man who doesn't have a sense of ego usually is not available for a relationship, right? Because he's just going to be out there, right? Either he's on the hunt for his appraisal, or he's on the hunt for his credentials, or he's on the hunt for money, or he's trying to find his identity, right? There's no space for a relationship. A lot of times these unavailable men, the only thing that they are really focused on is relating to their ego, right? But once a man relates to his ego, right, he starts to get his identity, he starts to get his credentials, he starts to feel secure in who he is as a person, right, as an individual. Then he can start to relate beyond his own ego. So I see literally there are women in a relationship and this man is just relating to his ego the whole time that he's with this woman. He's just not mature, right? A lot of times men, they have to navigate the ego realm before they can graduate and move to the right, and move to the level where they can start to now relate to a woman. So an available man is a man who has a solid ego. He has a solid sense of self, right? He has his credentials, right? He has his identity, right? He's been around. He's explored, right? He's went on adventures, and he's learned a lot about himself, right? So his ego feels very much complete to him. It's not something that he's like restlessly trying to, find. And, there's a lot of men who their ego is really shaky, so they're restless, right? These men are restless, and they're in relationships a lot of time to boost up their ego. And I see a lot of women who are basically boosting a man's ego, right? But that's something a man needs to do on his own. He needs to relate to his ego in his own sort of terms, right? In his own journey, in his own, exploration of life. Either that be in job, either that, again, in relationships, either that be in, pursuing his credentials and finding his identity, right? Finding his image, his self-concept, right? Who am I as a man, right? Finding, that kind of, I am the man sort of, ego. And a lot of times these men will, be in relationships where it's basically I'm relating to my ego, right? Either I'm, with this woman for sex or for money, right? When a man is in his relating to ego, he's usually looking for a woman because of sex or for money, meaning money can be about, she ups my status, my ranking in what it means to be wealthy. Right, so looking for that image of wealth within a woman. So kind of looking at the aesthetics of a woman, right? And sex can be about I'm seeking my own pleasure. I want to have pleasure with my own ego, right? Where a lot of men, they talk about, I have the penis, right? I have the big penis or something like that, right? And literally they're relating to their ego. They're like, this sex with this individual or, in these relationships, it just makes me, I feel pleasure. I'm seeking the pleasure of my own ego. So men they'll go through that, right? And they'll graduate that once they kind of feel, okay, I got a handle on this ego thing, right? I feel pretty satisfied. I feel pretty secure in my own ego, right? They graduate and they get to, now I want to relate beyond my ego, right? I want to relate to the woman, right? So that's what I mean, available. A man, he is available to relate to a woman, right? Beyond his ego, which is sex and money. Sex and money is usually like the primary thing men focus on until they start to, they start to level up, right? And that can take, a lot of times some men they don't level up until they're like 35, right? Because it takes time for men to level up, where they start to get a grasp on their social group and on their finances and on, their sex and, the relationships based on sex, that kind of thing. They get a handle on their friend group and their family and what their credentials, right? They start to gain a reputation, an identity, right? And then they start to level up, right? Right? And the time they level up is usually the time when they're really they're available to relate to a woman. Right now, sex and money has evolved into, I would like emotional fulfillment, and I would like to experience happiness, right? Harmony. Right? So sex and money now has evolved to emotional fulfillment and harmony. Right? I would like emotional fulfillment and harmony. Right? And that's when they begin to relate to a woman in the way that they know that is what a woman is about. They know a woman is about emotional fulfillment and harmony. Right? So how does she create that? Through her creativity. Right? So a man's sort of desire to relate to ego, right? His pleasure and his credentials and boosting himself up like I'm the man, I'm the man, that kind of thing, that evolves into I would like to have emotional fulfillment, right? I would like to have harmony now. Right? I feel pretty solid, I feel pretty secure in who I am as a man. I would like to evolve that, right? I would like to expand upon that. I would like to experience a man in relation to a woman, right? A man who now is, tapping into emotional fulfillment, tapping into a harmony, right? So, again, a man who's available is a man who is graduated beyond that. You could say that ego, right? He's got a handle on that. He's up. He's leveled up. And now he's available to his own emotional fulfillment and his own harmony, right? So, again, how do we know as women that a man is, he's available for his own emotional fulfillment and his own harmony? Well, a lot of these men, they're wanting to experience, their heart, right? So they're getting in touch. So they've been there, done that, the whole, pleasure, sex, money. Now they would like to get in touch with their hearts. Usually these men are starting to get in touch with their feelings, right? They're starting to get in touch with how can I be a better person? How can I be a better man? Right? Usually these men, they start to focus on how can I be contribution to society? How can I participate in the community? How can I get involved in the community? Right? How can I, as a man, take my talents and gifts and what I've learned? Right? How can I take my ego and use it for something constructive? Right? How can I be a constructive man? How can I create a safe life? Right? How can I create an environment that is very inclusive and caring and a place where people can share? Right? Usually that man ego turns into, I want to create an environment where people can share themselves, where people can be inspired and empowered. Right? So now the man, relating to his ego, right, his sex and his money now evolves into, I would like to create an environment, I would like to create a safe place where people can share themselves, where they can take care of themselves. It's almost like, I want to create like a jazz house where everybody can come in and everybody can just they can be empowered and they can be inspired, because that's everything of the heart. right? A jazz house is about the heart. It's nothing to do with sex and money, right? It has to do everything about the soul, right? Everything about my heart, right? I'm expressing my heart, right? My love for a woman, right? Or my love for my brother, right? So usually a lot of these men, they start to tap into brotherhood, right? What does it mean to be in a brotherhood, and what does it mean to inspire and to empower each other as men, right? To be a man who makes a woman feel safe, right? A man who got a woman's back, right? So this is when men start to become protective of women. When men are in the relating to ego stuff, a lot of time they're not very protective. A higher vibrational man is usually very protective over a woman. So if he's not protective over you as a woman, it means that he doesn't feel necessarily solid or secure as a man. Because when a man has a good sort of ego, when he's up, he's up leveled, right? His relating to ego. Usually, when a man's ego is pretty solid, he's very protective over a woman naturally, right? Because again, when a man is ready for emotional fulfillment and he's ready for harmony, usually he's like, I create the jazz house and I make sure everybody in my jazz house is comfortable, and I make sure everybody is safe, right? That's very, very important to a man, is that when people are in my house and they're sharing, that everyone's safe, right? Everybody, I got their back, right? So a man that's just about sex and money, he has nobody's back. The only back he has is his own, right? So, right? So available man is a man who's focusing on his own emotional fulfillment. He's focused on harmony, and he's wanting to create an environment like a jazz house where people can be inclusive of each other, they can share, and they can start to I care about each other, right? In the heart. Right? I want to tap into my heart, right? I want to get into my feelings, and I want to feel empowered by life. Like I want to become lively, right? I want to use everything I've learned about sex and money, and I want to actually put it out there in the world, and I want to get in touch with the world. I want to get in touch with the people as a man. I want to learn about the people. I want to see what they're doing. How are you doing, my brother? Right? How you doing, my sister? How you doing? Right? That's a man who's available to relate to a woman, right? So again, available and then open, right? A man, again, when he's just in sex and money, he's not very opened, right? He's very open only to what's going to please him, what's going to get him boosted in his career, what's going to give him the credentials, what's going to give him the money, what's going to make him feel like he's the man, right? When he's he's in that early stages of becoming a man. So when it comes to a woman, she's exotic. She's a collective soul as well. She's very, very exuberant, and she's ecstatic, right? And she's so fertile and full of life and wonder and imagination and creativity and inspiration. She's the muse. She's the painter. She's the dancer. She's a musician, right? She's the intellectual mind. She's everything, right? She's every sort of creative aspect of life. She is it all, right? So when a man is open, he's basically, he's mature in the way that he wants, right? He wants to build a life where this woman can really be all that she can be. Right? A man who's not open is usually a man who's still, working on his sex and money, right? And he's still, he's not open in the way that he's not generous with a woman, right? He can offer her the space, right? The heart and the mind where she can really be all that she can be, right? And for us as women, it doesn't take a lot for us to be all that we can be, right? And for our man, like to be the muse, because we're naturally creative. That's just who we are, right? We were born to really tap into the fullness of our creative expression. So it doesn't take a lot for us to women to really tap into that. But for a man, right, when a man is not open, usually he doesn't have much to offer, right? He doesn't have much to offer. A man is generous, right? Women, we like to be both. We in a relationship, sometimes we're the man and we're the woman in the relationship. Like a lot of women I see, they're the giver and the taker, and they're giving, right, and they're giving, and they're also playing the man, right, or they're holding the relationship down. They're the creative one and they're holding the relationship down, right? Which is, it's your dance, whatever dance you want, it's your dance, right? But when a man, again, when he has graduated that sense of ego, usually he feels pretty secure in what he has to offer, right? A man who's insecure in what he has to offer, a lot of times he's very insecure with his woman, right? Therefore, he can't really take charge. He can't really, stand up. He can't really protect her. He can't really, help her in any way, right? Because he doesn't really feel he has much to offer because his ego is still in question. Right? It's still in question. So when a man's ego, when he starts to, level up, then he starts to realize, I have much to offer this woman, right? And there's joy. A lot of the men they have enjoyment in offering. They want to offer, right, to the woman, right? Especially a woman that is their muse. They want to give things to her, right? In a higher vibrational man doesn't just want to. He knows that she's fertile. He wants to water her, right? He wants to feed her, right? He wants to clothe her. That's just kind of when that's a higher vibrational man. But again, it's all about, he has to up level, right, his ego. He has to go through the sex and the money. That's the only way. He has to go through the sex and the money in order to start to get to a level where he feels solid, he feels secure in who he is and what he has to offer. Meaning he starts to feel he's credible, he trusts himself, he starts to feel dependable, and he starts to feel like he has a handle, like he's building something in life, like he can make things happen in life for him. Right? A man who feels like he can't make things happen in life is usually victim to life. Usually it's a very angry man, and usually it's a man who feels like he's not a man. He doesn't feel like I'm the man, right? Because he can't make things happen for him in life, right? So there are a lot of women who are relating to these men they don't know how to make anything happen for them in life. And what happens is a lot of these men, again, they have nothing to offer. They don't feel good about what they're offering, and therefore the woman tries to compromise and therefore tries to be the man's ego, right? Tries to be the man's ego while being herself, the woman, right? So I see women, we hold it down naturally. We can hold it down because we're very, very strong, and we're very, very dynamic, well-rounded, and we're very multi-talented as women. Right, so we're the chameleon. We can be anything we want, right? We're the chameleon, right? But in relationship, what is very unfulfilling, emotionally unfulfilling for a woman is when a man, he's not available and he's not open because he's still unstable when it comes to his own sense of identity and ego, right? So a man who's really solid and secure within his own ego, he's a man, right? He's a man, and this is what I have to offer, right? This is what we're doing together, right? This is the adventure we're gonna have, and I'm gonna support this adventure, right? We're gonna do this thing. That's usually a man, right? A man, the sort of mature man, he's like, I don't really know, like, I want to do this, but I don't, sort of like, he doesn't really take charge, right? He's kind of like wishy-washy or fickle, or like he's, here and then there. That's not really the stronghold man, right? Usually the man, when he's available and he's open, he's very much like, we're going to do this thing, right? We're going to be on an adventure, and I'm going to support you, and I have your back, right? You can count on me, right? That's what we call a strong ego. When a man is like, you can count on me, right? I'm reliable, right? I'm reliable, that we're going to be on this adventure together and we're going to see it through. Because the one thing about a good, solid ego is it sees it through. So ego is not enemy. Ego is not, the demon or something like that. Can actually be very, very constructive in the way that it can really see it through. It can really help us to see it through, but only when it feels very stable. Or when our ego and sex and money, feels like insecure. I don't have much to offer. I don't have much in my life. I don't know how to make things happen for myself. I have no control over my emotions, and right, that kind of pity party, or that kind of feeling poor, like the poor ego, right? The poor ego, right? Usually that's not the person who's going to see it through, right? That's the ego that won't see it through, and that's the ego that's not reliable, and usually that's the ego that doesn't really have your back as a woman, right? Because a man knows that a woman, she wants to grow and she wants to be creative and she really wants to see she is already there, right? She already has emotional fulfillment. She already has what we call emotional fulfillment and harmony, right? From like very young person, she's already like becoming that. Well, men, they don't really start to get into that until they've again graduate the sex and money. So a lot of times women are considered much more mature than men because they've already at a very young age start to work on emotional fulfillment, harmony. What does it mean to create a community? What does it mean to share, care, and include, right, in the community, right? So they've already sort of mastered that, a lot of women, right? So when they're coming into a partnership, they really want to even go deeper, and they want to really build a facility, right? They really want to build a creative facility in which they can see a more security within their life, right? So as women in our own independence, right, we're definitely a part of our mastery with our own ego, because we have an ego as a woman, is that we do want to have security. But for us as women, our security is very much inclusive of people, in the way that a man's ego is like me, right? My security, my money, my pleasure, mine, right? It's my money, my sex, right? But as women, our security is about we're wanting to create a home, right? We're wanting to create a home that is that's safe. We want our security to be safe. We want our money and our sex to be something that's meaningful, and that's something that's endearing. Because women, we're very soulful. We're soulful from like a little girl to full-blown woman, right? We're very, very soulful. So everything we do involving our ego as women, we can be competitive, right? As we can be very competitive. But at the end of the day, we're competitive because we want to push each other, right? We want to challenge other women and other people to be better, right? So that we can have more harmony in the community, right? So that's kind of a little bit about our ego as women and how we find security within our own sort of practical sex money life. So when we are again kind of relating to a man and he's relating to us, he is seeking from us emotional fulfillment. He's seeking from us harmony, right? Because he knows we have it, and we've had it since we were a little girl, while he is probably has not had that, right? It's something he's had to develop, while us women, we have it just naturally, right? We don't really need to develop it as strongly as men need to. So with emotional fulfillment and harmony for us as a woman, it comes through our spirituality and it comes through our creativity. So a lot of times spirituality and creativity is unappreciated and unrecognized by a man until he has graduated sex and money. Then he starts to realize, wait a minute, spirituality and creativity is actually very, very relevant, right? It's actually something that is very, very powerful because it helps the community, right? So again, a lot of times men, they don't even like really look at the community. They're like, again, when I'm relating to my ego as a man, I'm like, my ego, right? The sex is gonna be the pleasure. I got the biggest cock, right? Or, they're talking about their, the cock, all this cock stuff. And then they're about money, right? I made all this money, very, very competitive, very can be ruthless, right? When it comes to their sex and money. And again, they're just trying to find their ego. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just they're restless because they don't have a sense of strong ego, and therefore they don't feel like they have much to offer, and they want to offer something, right? They want to. I want to offer something to life, but I have to find my ego. I have to find my identity. Or as a man, I'm just going to constantly feel less. I'm going to constantly feel victim. I'm going to constantly feel like I can't make things happen for me. And that's the one thing about man. If he feels he can't make things happen for him, his male ego, a lot of times it's like I'm a victim, right? I feel poor ego. I'm a poor ego as a man, right? And that a man does not want that poor ego, right? So when a man has graduated that, right, poor ego has become a very stabilized ego, right, through learning and growing on the journey of life. He starts to step into, okay, right, I really want to like take what I've learned, and I do want to participate in a community. I do want to have a brotherhood. I do want to have, support the sisterhood, right? I want to experience more of the people, right? Getting in touch with people and learning, right, that from them. Like I really want to learn about my heart and my soul. That's usually when, right, he's very, very honoring and respectful of women who are very, naturally spiritually and naturally creative, because he understands the value of it. A poor ego of man does not thinks there's no value in a woman's spirituality or creativity. He's like, there's no value in it because he's so deep in his poor ego. Like, I can't make things happen. I don't have an identity. I don't have credentials, right? I don't have this, that. I don't have this, the sex or, the money, right? So he's like poor ego kind of thing. So he sees no value in anything beyond just his sort of hustle or restlessness to obtain his ego, right? So when he moves beyond that, when he levels up from that, he starts to find that the value of spirituality and creativity actually it helps people, right? It helps people to be better, right? It takes the competitive nature of people, and instead of competitive nature being aggression that belittles and attacks people, that competition can now become something that really pushes people to empower their lives so that they can have more victory in their life. So the male ego of victory for self becomes now that I feel victory of my own ego, I want to see victory for other people. That's when we talk about a man who's relating and open to a woman. Because women, we are spiritual, naturally. We are creative. That's just who we are. That's our archetype. That's our destiny, right? That's our destiny. We're meant to be that, right? We're meant to have security as well, right? But we're meant to build a heavenly facility. We're meant to build a community, build a lineage, build a home that has emotional fulfillment and harmony, right? So a lot of men, they don't even understand. It's like, whoo, goes over their head. They can't even compute until they are stable in their ego. It just goes over their head and like, oh, I don't get it. I don't get it. If it doesn't have to do with money or sex, I don't get it. I don't get it, right? And so again, for a man, it's just the desire for other people to have victory is usually what is how he's open to a woman, right? And what she's building for herself. She's building a home. She's building a community. She's building an artistry. She's building her life, right? She may not be as deep in sex and money as a man, is, because he's denser, but she's building, right? She's building something. She's just at a different, it's a different way than what men usually. Men is about, they build from very competitive, right? About, can be very, very like, right? I have that, the ego, like the have to have it, right? Right. Well, women, we're not necessarily building from a sense of ego. The woman energy, she's building from a state of, I want to build harmony in my life. I want to build harmony in my family. I want to build harmony in my career, right? That's what we want really naturally as women. So men really, they seek that within a woman, a man who's available or open. So, because once he's gone through, like, okay, I got my ego, I know who I am as a man, I feel confident and secure, and I feel like I have an identity, right? I don't feel like poor ego, right? The mercy of life. I feel like I can make things happen. And I feel, I gotta pat my back. I have victory, right? So I would like to experience now victory with the woman, right? Because she has a different kind of victory, and I feel in awe of that woman, because her victory is completely different from my victory, but I'm deeply mesmerized by it, because a woman's sense of victory is she has victory over her emotions, she has victory over her soul, she has victory over creativity and her spirituality, right? She wants to build victory in those areas, right? So when a man is available and open, he's very much like, okay, like he wants that from her, right? He wants to not only have victory of his own ego, he would now like to have victory in his brotherhood, and he wants her to, the sisterhood. He wants to see victory beyond his bubble. He wants to see victory like almost inclusive of the eyes of a woman, right? Victory that is something like she has going on, that, and he's like, I'm okay. What is the woman doing? I want to get involved in that, right? So it's like a man who's got a stable ego. He's now like, okay, I want to get involved in that, right? So that's what I mean, an available and open man. So a lot of men are not available and they're not open, and the main thing is, again, said so much, is that his ego, he doesn't have a stable ego, and that's something he has to work out on his own. A woman, we're so giving, we're so generous, right? Because our victory has to do with our people, right? Well, man's victory sometimes is about himself until he moves beyond that, right? In time. So our victory, we naturally as women were like, how can I help you? Because we're about service, right? We're the dharmic path. We're the higher incarnation. So we're like, how can I help? Right? Men are like, how can I help myself? How can I help my poor ego? Right? How can I help my poor ego get out of this poorness of my identity, right? Or lack thereof. Right? So as women, we can't help a man build his ego. Right? We really can't. That's something he has to do on his own. So a lot of women, a man who doesn't have a stable ego, he like plays games, right? Because he's trying to get something that can build him up, right? And he doesn't know how to do it correctly, so he'll do it through other ways. Right? Because again, an unstable ego to a man, he doesn't necessarily know how to make things happen correctly, constructively. So he sort of makes things happen for him in a like, not in a good, kind of in a poor way, right? It's like, okay, this is very, right? So he can do that in relationships, right? So he's not offering the best he could offer. He's offering, like, his poor ego. And as a woman, we don't want a man's poor ego, right? That's not very fun for us, right? Because then usually we feel like we have to like, we have to like talk up to them constantly. So with men who are, especially relating to a man's ego, The sex and money will be there until a man dies. It will not go away, right? It will never go away. But so for us as women in relating to that man's ego, because the ego can be about games, right? Games that men play, right? Competition is about a game. It's like a chessboard, right? It's a chess game, right? And so men naturally, they're curious about the game, the competition, the game of life. So as women, how we can relate to that man's ego is to play a game, right? But to play a creative game, right? Play a game that's going to build up the relationship, right? That's going to build up a man where he can start to feel like, he can feel like a man, right? Right? He can be an identity. He can be an individual, right? Because he's not a woman, right? He's more about individual. He's more about identity. Well, woman is more about the blending of individuality and the sort of coming together of identities. So playing a game with with a man's ego is very much right, how we are able to cut through, right? But when we play constructive and creative game with a man's ego, basically that ego wants to participate, right? A man's ego wants to participate in like a game, right? Something that's gonna like push him and challenge a man's ego to be even more of a man, right? So that's kind of what I see of like relating to a man's ego. It's just kind of like we're playing a game with him. But again, like a woman, you could play whatever game you want. You could play a destructive game that leads to hate and lust and all kinds of, just vengeful sort of games that really that don't really even help you as a woman, right? You don't even get what you really want from it, right? It's just, or you can play games that are very creative in the way that it really pushes a man and pushes yourself in a very like very fun way, like to be empowered, right? To be in power, because that's a man's ego and that's a female's ego. I want to be in power of my own life. That's empowerment. In power of my own life, right? So when you play games that is about you being in your power and them being in their power, that's what we talk about, right? Really, it being fun, right? Competition with a man, right, in his own ego becomes fun, right? Competition, like feeding a man's ego, right? It becomes fun for him, but also fun for you. Not just you're feeding a man's ego and he feels like, I feel pretty good. I'm the man. But then you feel like, I didn't get anything from it, right? So that game is kind of like you're playing with that man's ego, competitive ego, right? But you're in the way that he feels like he's in power, but you also feel like you're having fun with it. Like you feel good too, right? You feel pretty good. And when a man, like, again, his ego kind of, again, is stable and is fed well, right? Fed well, then usually he's like, I have so much to offer you as a woman. Like, I want to offer you. And that's a high vibrational man. He wants to offer something to a woman, right? A man who has nothing to offer is a poor ego, right? Because a man always has something to offer. It's just he is not available, open, and therefore he's not ready to offer, right? A man who's available and open is ready, right? He's like, I have something to offer, right? I feel it in me. I want to offer this, right? And usually when it could be little tokens of appreciation, something respectful, something, endearing, but usually a man, when he's, beyond the sex and money, he wants to offer a woman he wants to offer her his reliability, right? And he wants to offer her his support, like, I have your back, right? Because men, again, they're about allies. The ego of man is like an ally, right? I'm an ally. But when it's poor ego, it's a poor ally, right? So when a man is a stable ego, he's like, I'm a good ally, right? I can offer much to this woman. I am a good ally, right? And that's kind of a higher vibrational man. He's like an ally. He's a protector. He's watchful. He has your back, right? So a lot of these men I see in this, world, they're caught in the sex money. They're a poor ally, they're a poor protector, and with that, they feel very like a poor ego, and a lot of times they feel very emotionally like dissatisfied, and they have a lot of emotional sort of just like out of sorts, what I will say, right? Out of sorts. And therefore the relationship with women becomes an emotionally out of sorts, right? Where they don't really understand how to connect with a woman, because a man, he needs to know how to connect with himself first. Just like a woman, she needs to connect with herself first. So that's why it is very important that men, experience what it means to be stable and to be an individual and have their own identity, so that they can really get in touch with their life, get in touch with themselves, right? Because if they don't know how to get in touch with themselves and they're sort of, mixing up with a woman, it just, it doesn't go anywhere for him because he's not ready. And therefore it doesn't go anywhere from a woman because she wants him to be ready and she's trying to get him to be ready, but then she doesn't really feel like he has her back because he's not ready to have her back. To be a good ally, you don't just become that overnight, right? You become that over time, right? To someone to become a good ally, or to someone that has your back, is usually someone who is somebody who's ready, right? Ready to have someone's back, ready to be a good ally, because they especially as a man, they've gone through it. They've been through sex, they've been through money, right? They have they've gotten their credentials, right? They've gotten their, honor, right? Man is a lot about honor, right? They've gotten their reputation, they got their identity. They're not a poor ego. They're a victor ego. When a man is more of a victory ego, then he's like, I'm a good ally. I can actually trust myself enough to have this person's back, right? So again, that's something a man, it's his own time, right? And us as a woman, we're all supporting each other, and women are extremely supportive because we're all about harmony and we're all about community. So we're very, very supportive of a man. But again, some sort of ego, a man's ego is something we can't really do for a man. We can't really get him to feel stable in his ego, right? That's something he has to do on his own, right? And as a woman, how we really show up in a relationship is through giving emotional fulfillment and giving harmony, right? Mostly giving it to ourselves. When a man really sees that we're taking care of ourselves, and that when we ourselves are being a good ally to ourselves, and we have our own back, when we can count on ourselves, right? That's very, very alluring. That's very, very mystic to a man, and very majestic to a man, when a woman is really coming into her, when she's in power, right? When she's in power, he's like, whoa, right? I got to get in power too, because I want to, right? I want to experience a greater power of myself, one that is beyond the self, but it's more about getting to know, right? Getting to know life in a deeper and a different and more fulfilling way. I want to get to know life, the touch of life, the nature of life, the philosophy of life, right? I want to get in touch with the joy and just the fun and the laughter of life. That's usually, right, when a man is he's ready, right? He's ready to really offer right? Because again, it's not a woman offering to a man. That's not, no, it's a man courting a woman. He's offering his courtship, which is, think of courtship as in, I'm offering, you can count on me, I'm an ally. I want to court you because I have something to offer, right? My ego, it wants to it wants to give you, right? What I've given to myself through my life and experiences as a man, now I would like to extend that out. And now I would like to offer it to a partnership that can help me as a man to open my eyes to greater beauty, right? That sex and money doesn't really offer, right? Sex and money doesn't offer what we call the philosophical, soulful, sort of fun-loving beauty. Only through emotional fulfillment and harmony do we really get to see beauty, right? Beyond just sex and money. We get to see beauty of peace, of nature, of art, of music, and that's, right, usually what the woman is. She's everything beauty. She's beauty of everything. And when he's ready to offer something to such of a wild beast that a woman is, usually he's stepping up emotionally, right? Just naturally, he's stepping up emotionally, and he's also beginning to step up when it comes to being in his power, right? Being in his power with his decisions, with his actions, and with really claiming what he wants. When a man is really stable in his ego, he really claims what he wants. He's not looking all around like that. That's a poor ego right there. Usually he's claiming. He's like, almost like a lion, like I claim you, right? And it's kind of, it's interesting, but that's a higher vibrational man where he wants to claim a union with a woman, right? He wants to conquer and he wants to have triumph in a union with a woman, right? And while a woman, she's very different. She's not about claiming a union or conquering or triumphing in the union, right? She's more so about, I just want to be free, right? I just want to be like, I just want to just open up and with my sisterhood and spiritually grow, and I just want to be creative. That's us as a woman. Like, I just want to be creative, dude. Like, if you want to kind of come with me, that's cool, right? So for us, security for as a woman is very different. We're less materialistic, right? As the woman archetype is not materialistic as a man, right? We want to build and we want to establish. We want to have a facility of safety and comfort and these kind of luxury, but we're more so. It needs to be in touch with emotional fulfillment and harmony, right? Well, men, it has to be more so about, I'm in touch with my ego. Right? Materialism has to do with my ego rather than emotional fulfillment or harmony, right? So that's kind of the game. Like, that's sort of why men are looking for women, because they know, right, that they can help them to have beauty, right? A mansion can be the most beautiful mansion, right? But without the woman, the muse of the woman, it's beautiful, but it's not exotic. It's not extraordinary. It's not like mesmerizingly beautiful, because only a woman really has that touch. Everything she touches is like, it becomes like just magnificent, right? So that's why men, once they, feel that ego, they're like, okay, I want to have beauty now. I really want to tap into beauty. I want to know beauty. What's the philosophy of beauty? What's the adventure of beauty, right? What does it mean to be free? What does it mean to be authentic? What does it mean to be wild as a man? What does it mean to be joy? And what does it mean to have pure, unaltered, unmaterialistic joy or freedom, right? So that's when he's like, okay, the woman, she's the leader of the land, right? She's the leader of the earth. And I want to learn that, because I've led myself into all kinds of materialistic gains and credentials, identities, brotherhood, competition. I've done that, been there. but now I would like to know about the earth, right? I want to know about the earth, right? So that's why men are kind of going to women, because they know about the earth. Men don't really know, only through the eyes of the mother or the grandmother or through the lover, the sister, right? The woman, right? Just the woman, right? So we become that, and that's how we draw that man in, right? In his own time. But again, men, they mature in time, right? They have their own, the ego, and the ego that's beat up as a kid, the ego that's shamed, the ego of regret, the ego of sabotage, all of that. Men are have to really navigate through that before they can really tap into real emotion, not shallow emotion, like real emotion. They really have to conquer their ego. Like, they have to grab the lion. They have to look that lion in the eyes and survive. Right? That's when we talk about a man who becomes a man. He looked at that lion. He literally 2 feet away from that lion. He looked directly in that lion's eyes and he survived. Right? That's what we talk about, like a man being initiated into like a man, right? But that's him in his own lion. That's not him, the woman, helping him to look the lion in the eye. That's him in his own lion. He has to face his own inner beast, right? And when he does, and when he conquers and he has victory, he's like, woo, like, I have looked that lion in the eyes. Oh my God, and I survived. The lion didn't attack me. I got a handle over it. I feel like, whoa, was a good man. Like, I'm like, and that when a man feels good about his own ego, usually he's like feels good about being in a relationship with a woman, right? Because he's like, right, I want to like, okay, like that lion, I want to have more experiences of victory. Like, I want to have more experience of like my spirit and like what it means to be like in power or empowering people or myself or my family. Like, then he's like really like, okay, I really want to tap into something greater than myself. I want to tap into the woman, right? She's the woman. Like, she's how I tap into the universe, how I tap into the earth, how I tap into energies that are beyond my wildest dream, right? And that's why he's like, right. And that sort of connection, that link to that woman, opens up energies that his own ego couldn't open up, right? She opened up energies within him only a woman could open up. And that's why he is reverently bowing to her, and why he courts her and he honors her and respects her, because she's the only one that could open up energies. His ego could open up sex, money, materialism, all that kind of thing, credentials, appraisal, that kind of thing. But she opened up other energies. She opened up his creativity. She opened up a nobility within him. She opened up a greater maturity within him, right? Either it be the mother, the sister, the grandmother, or the lover, right? It's the woman that really opens up a man and helps him to really step into an even greater ego, right? We talk about the ego of like the emperor, the ego of really being very, very stable, right? And very, very reliable, and an ego that is, it brings a lot of good feeling to a man, this type of ego. So thank you for watching this lecture, and may it open up you to the kind of, the esoterics of man and woman